Live from iRacing's virtual Talladega Superspeedway, welcome sim racing fans to round number 6 of the NASRA Triple M Pulling Truck Series, the ButtKicker 200, live on Racecraft TV. We're happy that all of you are joining us here from the beautiful virtual Talladega. And I'm your host, Joshua Lee. Alongside me is Ian Fisher. And Ian, so much of this championship is already coming into play as we get closer into the halfway point of the campaign, but 5 rounds down, and only just last week at Sonoma we saw the first multi-time winner of the season in Ted Wade. Now a lot of time left to go before these playoffs, as a lot of races still left to go, including tonight at what is undoubtedly a wild card track and the second out of 4 restrictor plate races we'll have this year.
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head there, Josh. It's a wild card track, and we've been talking so much about in the stretch of races all the way from Martinsville to all the way till next week in Darlington, how tough and demanding they are on these drivers. But today we throw them all in the bingo wheel, and we're going to pick a random winner, much like we did at Daytona. So there is a little bit of skill involved at Talladega. Definitely a track that wears on drivers mentally, maybe a little bit more than physically. But you're going to have to be really physically sharp tonight if you're going to come home in victory lane.
You can have a little bit of strategy, you can have a little bit of luck on your side, but at the end of the night, that luck is going to matter more than that strategy. And this season so far in the schedule, we have been to Daytona, Homestead, Martinsville, Nashville Superspeedway, and Sonoma. And on the horizon, of course, Darlington in 1 week's time, but then we take a break for the All-Star race, then go to Eldora, Indianapolis, Hickory, Pocono. We return to Talladega with Rockingham and Charlotte rounding out the regular season. But specifically talking about these plate tracks, I mean, of course, we have Daytona on the schedule for the opening round of the season. Now we're back at Talladega. We go to Talladega one more time before the playoffs begin, and then we go to Daytona one last time before the end of the campaign. So 4 total super speedway plate racing tracks. So this schedule, Ian, really does fit the drivers that are a little bit better in terms of skill on the plate tracks, which of course luck plays a major role, but that skill as well, being able to navigate those lines, is going to come into play. And we saw at Daytona earlier this season Chris Cinnamon walk away the winner, and he definitely is going to be one of the many picks you can make tonight here at virtual Talladega.
Oh, absolutely. There's strategy that could definitely be involved. You have to pick your right partners and work your way up to the front. It's much more mentally taxing, as I touched on earlier. And like you mentioned, you have to find which line is moving correctly and really find your way through the racetrack as it goes on. And it's not necessarily about leading the entire race, but more about putting yourself in position to win on that final lap, Josh, because more often than not here at Talladega, we see a final lap pass for the win.
You were with us here on Tuesday at the virtual Talladega Superspeedway. Myself, Evan Pasoko, on the call for the Summer Showdown, presented by McConey Setup Shop, General Tire, Jim Beaver Esports, and Next Level Racing. And that was an exciting run to the finish line to crown a winner there, and 4 different winners in 4 rounds in that series as well. And we'll see if we can rekindle some of that same magic here tonight for the virtual Talladega Superspeedway. And tonight we'll be racing 480 laps on the docket, with stage 1 ending roughly around lap 15. Stage 2 will end at around lap 35. And of course, the custom fix setup, 75% fuel on board. They can go about 20 to 24 laps, and they have 3 tire sets total. They'll have 2 extras for them sitting in the pit lane, but 80 lap distance in, roughly about how much the trucks do here, and about 100 laps shy of the total NASCAR Cup Series distance, which it's not a long time, especially with those stages, about 15 laps a piece, including the stage breaks, and then we'll have about a 40 lap run to the end. But that 20 to 24 lap fuel window, if we don't have a caution in that 3rd stage, they will have to come down and make green flag stops.
And green flag stops are always one of the most exciting things about super speedway racing. You really have to choose your partners, not only on the racetrack, but making a move to pit lane as well, Josh, because as we all know, if you make that move to pit lane and you're stuck by yourself, or you have a bad time getting off the pit road and you can't catch up to the back of the pack, it's very, very hard to make yourself back into a position where you can be competitive in the race.
Well, let's not waste any time. Field taking to the grid, and we are getting ready for the ButtKicker 200 from iRacing's virtual Talladega Superspeedway. Taking the pole position, it was Christopher Blanchard for the first time this season. 56, 1, 2, 3 on the stopwatch, with Devin Painter, his best start of the season as well, outside of the opening row. Tyler Dittmer, Dana Shepard going to share the second row. Time's fairly close in the top 5, and rounding out that top 5 is Stephen Thomas in the 23. Keith Bradley struggled at Sonoma late in the race. He'll start P6, with Jacob Klinkart, the driver that jumped multiple spots in the playoff standings after Sonoma, starting 7th. Jonathan Mundo will start P8, running out your top 10. Jose Luis Rivera and Joey Doucette, our winner from earlier on this season at Homestead. CJ Fonda, a new name here to the NASRA Triple M Pulling Truck Series, going to start 11th. Keith Haney to his outside P12. Zach Hartwick, Jason Morales, another new name in Morales in the 1, starts P14. Rounding at the top 15, a very familiar name to NASRA, it's Taylor Peacock. Blake Lothian in the 43 will start in P16. Justin Lumpkin, Eric Zimmerman going to be 17th and 18th on the grid. Chris Cinnamon and Brady LaBeouf going to share the 10th row, and rounding out your top 20. Halfway through the field now is Derek Kilgore, starts P21. Adam Newbert going to start P22, with Tim Hammond, another new name, next to Lucas Whitehead, completing his first season of action here in NASRA at P24. James Morris, yet another new name to complete the trio of new names, with Jeffrey Sickles going to round out the top 26. Michael McKinnon, Adam Cantwell going to end off row 14, and rounding out your top 30 will be Matt Rudder and Brian Abbott. As we go into the last portion of drivers on the starting grid, Torrey Thompson, Huck Wigington, 31st and 32nd. Dane Hagen and Jose Castellanos is going to round out the drivers that took time in qualifying. Ted Wade, two-time winner and winner from Sonoma, does not put in time for qualifying. Brandon Bullock doesn't either, to start P36. Raul Meza, James Haney, and Cody Knott are going to round out the 39 drivers that look to take the green flag. TJ Moore there in 40th. Race control, he will not take the green flag. As they work their way into the 32 degrees of banking here at the virtual Talladega Superspeedway. Clear skies in the virtual world, northeast at 1 mile an hour for that wind speed, and 120-degree track temperature. Not going to help them much in the grip department, but at the end of the day here in grip is not going to be the most important thing for these drivers. Yes, it makes a difference when they're making those moves bottom to top, trying to find which line to go with, but ultimately it's really going to rely on what drivers can choose the right lines and how quickly they can make their way up through the field, and at the right time as well.
Yeah, tire wear shouldn't be too much of an issue, Josh, but two things that stand out to me as I was watching you go through the grid is, one, this is a huge grid. 39 trucks is a massive grid even for real-life NASCAR racing, and two, a lot of real big hitters are starting at the back of the pack, not taking the qualifying time. Wondering if it's a little bit of a strategy, they want to stay out of some early wrecks, or if they just want the fun of going from the back to the front.
Ted Wade is one of those drivers that is starting at the back of the field. Of course, two-time winner this season. All the other winners kind of spread out throughout the entire field. Tyler Dittmer, winner from Nashville Superspeedway, going to be starting up at the front here in third. But both Blanchard and Painter showing single truck speed in qualifying. Both of them still yet to find victory lane yet this season. 80 laps await these 39 race trucks on the 33 degrees of banking here at the virtual Talladega Superspeedway. This track, of course, 2.66 miles in length, was made as a track to one-up the Daytona International Speedway down in Florida. What is said to be built on an old Indian burial ground, which is why we see the big ones. We see these drivers racing at over 200 miles an hour in the Cup Series. And when this track was built, Bill France wanted to sell more tickets down by turn number 1. His solution to do that was to put the start-finish line after the tri-oval on the short chute to the opening corner. So as the field goes by what normally would be the start finish, they hit the Geico restart zone, and let's go racing. It's Talladega, and it's round 6. The speeds build as they hit down to the Alabama gang super stretch, still 2 by 2. Couple trucks dropping to the bottom, looking to run to the back of the field, but at the front, it is a lot of drivers tucked in tight. The number 3 machine, most notably, heading to the back of the field currently. That is Chris Cinnamon, winner from earlier on this season at Daytona, and currently the reigning restrictor plate winner falls to the back of the field as Blanchard leads the way with Tyler Dittmer in tow as they try and clear the outside line, spearheaded currently by the 99 of Devin Painter as they'll head back to the start-finish line to complete the first lap of the night.
Pretty organized so far. Everybody just getting up through the gears, and 2 pretty orderly lines here up at the front with Painter and Blanchard up here battling at the front of the field, Josh. So kind of expecting now through the first couple of stages, drivers just getting settled in and finding their drafting partners and who they work well with. We'll start to see moves later on in the race.
Couple of stragglers at the back of the field as well, but we do see a formed up pack 2 by 2, like they're doing pace laps at about 180 miles an hour here at the virtual Talladega Superspeedway. Blanchard doing a nice job at the bottom of the racetrack to keep the lead, but Tyler Dittmer all over his back bumper, trying to push him a little bit further. If they clear that outside line, and Dittmer might be able to make a move, and we saw it a little bit with the ARCA Menard Series machines on Tuesday night, in that they could use those outside lines a little bit better. But even with a good bit of help on the outside, doesn't look like Devin Painter is getting much help from Dana Shepard behind in the number 45. That 99 kind of stalled out in between Dittmer and Blanchard, just cannot clear that 19 on the inside as they head back to turn 1.
Not only that, Joshua, but Dittmer gave Painter an excellent push down the backstretch the last time around, so that really helped that bottom line form up and really get a push along the bottom. But you mentioned it as well, it's so much easier to hold that momentum on the top side, but really it's about what line could get more formed up and more orderly, more than what side of the racetrack, especially when it comes to racing on the sim.
Back to turns 3 and 4, and Painter and Shepard gonna disconnect a little bit on the outside, with Blanchard still having help from Tyler Dittmer. A third line starting to develop on the outside. Looks to be a Chevy Silverado gonna try and go upstairs, and it looks like he's got Brady LaBeouf in tow. Wondering who that is up on the outside. I believe it was Joey Doucette that is trying to make that outside line currently work. 3 wide as one driver ducks back into the middle line, but right in front of LaBeouf, and LaBeouf almost going to leave that driver on the outside. It's actually the 93 of Tim Hammond. Makes sense why I didn't recognize the paint scheme. Believe this is his first start in the NASRA Triple M Pulling Truck Series, or at least one of his first of the season. And he'll go back up to the outside line, trying to go top of 3 wide with Brady LaBeouf in tow. At the front, still 2 by 2, and only 2 trucks daring to venture up by that outside retaining wall. And Brady LaBeouf in the NRE number 9 almost hitting it as they go through turn 3 and back to the front straightaway.
And it's very serendipitous, Josh. You mentioned again on Tuesday during the broadcast how easy it was for trucks to make a run once they got maybe 3 or 4 trucks in a pack or cars in a pack. But right now we see that third line trying to form. They got a few more helpers now, but right now I don't think 2 trucks is enough to really make a push with one line or another. But another thing that we touched on Tuesday as well is so much easier to run 3 wide here at Talladega than it is at Daytona. You take Daytona, you take about 2 of those lanes right there, and that's all you got to race with. And so 3 wide is very hairy for all these drivers. But here at Talladega, you got 3 defined lines, really easy to try to make your way up to that high line if you want to.
And middle line with a massive stall out in the middle of the field. Here comes the outside line. Now 4, now 5 trucks strong as they ride the outside wall, trying to go for the race lead. Almost 3 wide for that race lead currently, is down on the inside. It's still Blanchard. Tyler Dittmer goes from middle to top, almost 4 wide as a driver gets loose in the middle of the pack. Looks to be the number 63, or let's say the number 23, excuse me, of Stephen Thomas at the edge of the top 5. And now they're going to fall back in the middle line, but to the outside now is Tyler Dittmer. He leads heading into 1, but a run now for the 99 at Painter in the middle. Still got the 45 of Dana Shepard behind. He'll clear the inside line. Is he going to go for it? No, he won't. Painter stays middle, 3 wide all the way through the field.
And you saw how much drivers started to split out of that middle lane, Josh, once the top and the bottom really got formed up. You hear Darrell Waltrip all the time mention the middle lane being the sucker hole, and you're starting to see that effect now. You got 1 truck hung out to dry now currently in the middle, and you're just going to see them move backwards and backwards from here.
one driver, I believe it was Christopher Blanchard in the 19, got out of line to go down into the apron. It looked like when he came back up, he disconnected these packs. So now we have a smaller pack up at the front as Keith Haney trying to clear himself in front of the 99 at Painter, but Painter with help from Fonda behind is going to keep that inside line going strong, and they'll go back to 2x2. And you can see now Blanchard leading that second pack. He's got the 23 of Stephen Thomas in tow. He's also got Joey Doucette there in the 16 as well, the 15 up on the outside line, and they'll all have to try and catch back up to now what is the lead pack, and they've only got a few tenths to go, and they'll reach them pretty quickly as now back to 3 wide up in the lead pack as we go on board with the leader of that second pack, Christopher Blanchard.
And you saw how much, Joshua, we mentioned earlier in the broadcast, how Talladega is a mentally taxing race, but you saw the trucks kind of step out of line a little bit, and now we're back to 2x2 racing. Once the drivers get settled in a little bit more, start to get a little bit more confident, you may start to see that third line form again, but it's kind of interesting to watch under a long green flag stretch. The ebbs and flows of these trucks as we have two trucks kind of splitting away from each other here, about 10 back in the pack, but how these trucks kind of ebb and flow away from each other, and how you'll see packs form and dissipate through the course of a run.
Still 2x2 at the front. They've settled back from that 3 wide as it looks like still both of these packs are running fairly independently as one driver pulled down into block the 19 of Christopher Blanchard. That was looked to be the 87 machine of Justin Lumpkin, the 20 machine as well of Jose Luis Rivera's down there, and they're still trying to get back up to this lead pack. They're still fairly unorganized. Once you go past the double file and you get to the 19 of Blanchard, you get to the 16 to do set, starting to just kind of stay unorganized, and they'll need to form their way back up if they want to get back up and make a run at this race lead. But as we go now, over halfway done with stage number 1. Remember, lap 15, at the end of lap 15 will be the stage caution for stage number 1. Wondering how many drivers are going to want those top 10 stage points, and also wondering how aggressive they're willing to get for them, because right now Taylor Peacock holds that 10th spot, and he's got Klinkart, Munda, and Lumpkin behind that. If they can make up just a little bit more time here in the pack, they can get some stage points before the end of stage 1.
And our current leader, Keith Haney, you know, he had a good finish last week, Joshua, at Sonoma, and that was able to vault him into a more comfortable playoff position. So you got to think here out in front with lap 10 here coming to the line, he's looking for stage points.
Outside line led by Hammond in the 93. He's got about 7 drivers with him in tow. It seems like when that outside line is basically the middle line and 2 wide, if they go 3 wide all the way up by the wall, that outside line with enough help does have enough of a run. And that is when, with all the side forces of the inside and the outside line, it looks like the middle line has a little bit more of an opportunity to get itself formed up and be able to make a run at the inside line. But in this double file, it looks like a pack racing circa 2013 in the NASCAR Cup Series, where seems to be bottom line dominant, and that outside line just trying to catch up whenever they're under the green flag, as they have a lap driver in front. Looks to be Raul Meza, started from the pit lane, that number 37, so he'll be up on the outside line. They go 3 wide for a moment, but Meza gonna have to try and fall into the pack at the tail end of one of these lines and try and now keep himself from going more than just that 1 lap down. As they head back to the Alabama Gang Super Stretch, still Keith Haney out in front. The entire top 4 able to clear the outside line using the inside.
The bottom line is doing a really good job of staying formed up and really pushing each other along, especially the top 3 trucks, and maybe even back to the 99 of Devin Painter, just really doing a good job locking bumpers and pushing themselves on the straightaways, but then also giving each other enough room in the corner to operate.
Back to the front straightaway, 4 laps to go in stage number 1 this time by, and Keith Haney commanding this race, and here comes Tim Hammonds now. He's gonna pull up side by side with Haney, grab the race lead for a moment. A great shove from the 9 of LaBeouf. Is he gonna leave him? He looked to the outside. He does not decide to do it. Very, very eager look to be LaBeouf. Same thing with Tyler Dittmer, who is in tow from the 9 and the 81 up there as well of Taylor Peacock, but through 1 and 2. They'll stall out again, and top 3 now going to be clear the outside line, and Tyler Dittmer in the 34 on the inside, third in line. Now trying to give a shove to Shepard, give a shove to Haney as they head back to turn 3. Still Hammond leading that outside line. Going to try and get another run in that Chevy Silverado. He's got another Silverado behind him. Then it is a Ford F-150. Then another Silverado back to the first Toyota in line.
45 and Dana Shepard right now doing a great job pushing Keith Haney on that bottom side, Josh. Those top 3 trucks, again, I mentioned it, really linked up right now, making it really hard for that top line to get a run established. It seems like every time that Tim Hammond there tries to get to the front, you mentioned it, they seem to stall out in the corners. So it's really important here not to just pick the line with most momentum, but also pick the line that you could form up with here and really start to push your way to the front.
3 laps to go in stage number 1. How aggressive will they get at the front for the stage points? Remember, how hard is it to really gain a ton of positions here? If you're stuck in the middle of one of these lines, the battle for 10th sits between Klinkart and Whitehead, and right now that 5 and the 88 are in line with each other. If the 88 of Whitehead wants to get into the top 10 for stage points, he's gonna have to either go into the middle line and try and power past the inside line, or go up top for 3 wide and try and get by everybody. He'll go to the outside, he'll get P10 away now as he passes the 5 of Jacob Klinkart on the inside, but once again reaches a wall. He needs that middle line to go forward with 2 to go. The 87 of Lumpkin looks to make a third line up at the top of the racetrack, does not go for it. He'll pull back into line as the pack now properly formed up. How about some 20 trucks in line as they'll go 3 wide up at the front. Shepard is gonna dump Hammond and push the number 93 to the outside line, and Shepard's gonna lead back to 3.
And that's sometimes what you have to do, Josh, to take the lead, is just push yourself in a way to get just clear of the leader and then move down into their line. Shuffles Keith Haney back to 3rd here, coming to 1 lap to go on the stage.
The tri-oval, one driver ducks into the pit lane, look to be the 5 of Jacob Klinkart. Out of the stage points, wanting to get the pit stop out of the way now. White flag in the air for stage number 1, and Tyler Dittmer all over the back bumper. The 45 of Dana Shepard back to turns 1 and 2. Outside line stalls out as Tim Hammond cannot get a run. Haney will be clear in 3rd as they go to the Alabama Gang super stretch once again.
Looks like right now, Josh, the inside line has the advantage, but you got to think, is Dittmer going to try to step out in front of Haney here with any time to go, because he's looking for stage points as well.
Back to turn 3, Shepard still leads. Dana Shepard looking for stage win number 1 of the season. Keith Haney leads the outside line. Devin Painter going to enter the fold as he goes to P4, but back to the front straightaway. Does Haney have enough? Does he have enough of a push from Tim Hammond behind? Side by side as the 87 of Lumpkin ducks to pit lane. Dittmer's going to make contact with Shepard, who makes contact with Haney, and Haney is up and into the air. The 78 is the only truck involved in that incident other than Dana Shepard, and Tyler Dittmer wins the stage as the stage yellow comes out. Another driver involved, that is the Ford F-150 of, I believe, the 11 of Derek Kilgore. Yes, it is. Tim Hammond gets damage as well in the 93, but that could have been a lot worse with a flipping 78 in the middle of the pack.
No kidding, Josh. When the 78 flipped there, it seemed like half the field avoided him here. I'm sure we're going to get a replay here soon. But yeah, you see the field coming to the line here at the end of the stage. And of course, you want to battle for the stage points, but a little bit of a push gone wrong there. And yeah, Haney's just up and over. And somehow, miraculously, most of the field avoids him, Josh. That was pretty impressive.
It got aggressive for that stage win, and I don't quite think that's exactly what Dittmer was looking to do. He just pushes Dana Shepard in the worst possible spot, and how about that slam into the 9 for Brady LaBeouf, and the 88 and the 93, the 11 involved that looked to be their own separate kind of accordion effect incident. But with that Shepard and Haney incident, you can't push in the tri-oval, especially down on that bottom lane, Ian, because that portion of the tri-oval is so bumpy. It's the very, very bottom line that is just an extra line added to make the tri-oval a little bit wider. So it's so bumpy down there, you can't really make that much of a bump draft there. And unfortunately, Dana Shepard, Tyler Dittmer, and the 78 of Keith Haney learning that very much the hard way coming to that stage end.
You hit the nail on the head again there, Josh. You can't push in the tri-oval, and if you are going to push in the tri-oval, you have to be so careful, and that's so hard for you to do as a driver when you're coming to the green and checkered flag of a stage. You're possibly battling for stage points or just battling for position, and you're trying to make that push on the driver in front of you to help yourself out, not as much as them. And it's so hard when you have that adrenaline rush to try to make that push right on the bumper, and you saw it there. The push was just a little bit off center and sent the truck around.
Out of the pit lane under the stage break, Dittmer comes out first. Looks to be either a call of no tires or a call of 2 tires on that number 34, and it looks to be no tires, just fuel for Dittmer. Looks to be the same for most of the field. 8.4 in the box for Painter. Same thing with Dittmer. Looks like Joey Doucette fuel only. Jacob Klinkart, who pitted before the end of the stage, will end up with 2 fresh Goodyear tires. He's looking to restart what looks to be P5. Christopher Blanchard in the 19, he came in, it looked like he ducked down before the stage break caution came out, so I believe he's going to keep his position. Klinkart goes to the front, as it seems like there is a bit of a debate with race control over EOL penalties for the caution, and it looks like Dana Shepard's going to be handed an EOL. Not sure if anybody else will be handed an EOL penalty, but as they are scored right now, it's Klinkart, Dittmer, Painter, Blanchard, and Doucette, and there you see the very damaged number 45 of Dana Shepard in the pit lane. Tyler Dittmer will also get handed an EOL, and that looks to be the end of the EOL penalties. Remember, no fast repairs for any of the drivers in this field, as Dittmer will have to fall now all the way to the tail end of the longest line, which I believe is going to end up being the inside line here, as they will get 2 by 2, I believe, this time by, and will be ready to take the green flag once again. But an interesting opening stage there, Ian, to say the least. And when we go back to racing, we're going to have roughly about 16, 17 laps to go, creeping a little further into that 20 to 24 lap fuel window. But it still is going to be basically a sprint stage leading up to the 40 lap final stage that we're going to have to end the night.
Well, that was quite intriguing, wasn't it? I mean, pretty clean racing through the first 15 laps, and then, of course, coming to the green and white checkered flag to end of the stage, we see some carnage. But really, these drivers here, if they made it through the wreck unscathed and clean, if you're at the front of the pack up here, like Klinkert or Painter, you just kind of got to relax, get back into a rhythm, and run the rest of your race, and know that you got to keep going here for another 70, or excuse me, another 55, 60 laps here at least, Josh.
Field is gonna get double filed here. It looks like Klinkart's gonna be choosing the outside line. Lights are off on the official iRacing pace truck, and they will now starting to sit side by side. And it sounds like we have a little bit of an issue with how the drivers are lined up. Klinkart goes to the outside, and I believe he's going to be scored somewhere else than the race lead. Bit of debate, and we're wondering if we'll see another lap under the yellow flag. But developing timing and scoring here as we try and get everything figured out. But field back to 2 by 2. I didn't see any incidents really in that first stage, and of course the 2 kind of spiral incidents that happened at the end of the stage, but we still have not seen any caution having incidents, only coming to the end of the stage, which a caution already coming out for the end of the stage there. So no incident caution still yet on the night, as the only caution to come out was this stage break, and everybody hit the pit lane to grab, because some of them fresh tires, most of them just some top off of the official Sunoco fuel, that they can try and finish now stage 2 without having to take any more tires.
Yeah, and if I was coming down pit road this time, or if I want to throw one of those crew chiefs up on the box, I would probably just take fuel this time around and not worry about tires until maybe the stage 2 stop. Like you mentioned at the top of the broadcast, tires aren't too important of an issue, but really track position is an important thing here. As we see the truck dive to pace road, we're ready to go back to green. So those drivers that took advantage of that track position, they'll be looking to make as much as they can here in stage 2.
Official pace truck down and back into the safety of the pit lane. 3 drivers off and into the pit lane. LaBeouf, Haney, and Shepard. Everybody else, Shepard and Haney are still in the pit lane grabbing repairs. Everybody else is in the field. Brady LaBeouf scored out of this race. Back to the Geico restart zone. Back to the green flag as they'll head to turn number 1. Devin Painter on the inside line. Christopher Blanchard on the outside. Exactly where we began the night. Just lane swapped as they go through the middle of 1 and 2. Blanchard opts down to the inside. Klinkart leads the outside line as they go back to the Alabama Gang super stretch for the first time in stage 2.
Yeah, Blanchard making quick work there. Painter on the restart. Just got a really good launch off of the restart on the outside line and then just dropped down in front of him here once he saw that he was clear. And some of these drivers do have a preferred line. They want to run the inside or they want to run the outside. It really doesn't matter who's behind them. They just feel more comfortable in one place or another. So you maybe wonder if that factors into the decision making here for Blanchard.
Back to the front straightaway, and Christopher Blanchard with help from Devin Painter behind. Jacob Klinkart has Justin Lumpkin in tow, which that number 87, no slouch on these super speedways, trying to shove Klinkart around the 19 and at the line. I believe that is lead given to the 5 of Jacob Klinkart. We'll go on to lap number 20. Does the 5 have enough to keep that momentum going through turns 1 and 2? 87 all over the back bumper as the outside line now 6 trucks strong, trying to power along the inside line, but one driver popping out of line there looked to be number 15 as they stay side by side for the race lead.
And we've seen the 87 of Justin Lumpkin all night long here trying to make some aggressive moves all over the racetrack. You saw towards the end of the stage 2 there, Josh, he tried to step out and make a third line and got kind of bottled up and forced back into the second line, but no surprise seeing him here up at the front or in the early in stage 2.
Still 2x2 through most of the pack, and a Ford F-150 falls into the middle of that inside line. That was the number 27 machine, or number 47, excuse me, of James Morris, as Blanchard and Klinkart, the 19 versus the 5, back to turn number 1. Top 2 in that outside line breakaway as the 87 of Lumpkin gives a shove to the Chevrolet Silverado in front, and now to the back straightaway yet again. Still only 6, make it 7 trucks in that outside line. Nobody else looking to join there, and a checkup on the bottom line as it looks to be an issue with the number 20 machine of Jose Luis Rivera as he checks up Stephen Thomas, Taylor Peacock, and more on that inside.
Yeah, that's really going to break up that inside line. 4th in position on the inside line on back, and they're kind of struggling to form back up right now. But that outside line really has it going, Josh, and trying to make a run on the leader here. Blanchard 19 is Klinkert here in the 5 truck, getting pushed very well by Justin Lumpkin in the 87.
Back to turn 1, now on lap number 22, as on the outside line, Klinkart still trying to clear the inside. He's got a really good pusher and Lumpkin behind. How about joining this fight up here? Adam Newbert in that outside line. Blake Lothian, first time we've seen him back up here in the top 10 since the start of this race, and he's on that outside line as well. Another new name in Fonda in the 53, also helping that outside line's cause as they try and get to the race lead, but still on the outside line. It's Klinkart that cannot get past Christopher Blanchard. That inside line is just too strong in these trucks, and if they get enough of a help, that outside line will come into play. Just right now, there's just not enough of it, as 2 F-150s trying to push a Silverado to the race lead at the line. They'll barely have it by inches, but Klinkart can't clear the 19 to Blanchard.
And this is kind of the ebb and flow that we see here too in super speedway racing, is while the outside does have more overall momentum, on the inside, the shorter way around the racetrack, you see him kind of gain an advantage there in the corners, Josh. So if you're the outside line, you really got a time when you're making your pushes and passes, because you have to kind of strike not only in the time where you get a push from your driver, but also where you're going to be out in front of the other trucks on the inside line because of momentum. So really got to time your passes here, and that's one of the aspects of super speedway racing that maybe people don't consider, is how deliberate you have to be with your moves, especially down the stretch.
On board, middle of the pack with a 16 of Joey Doucette, winner from the virtual Homestead Miami Speedway. Winner from the Daytona International Speedway was Chris Cinnamon. Remember how he started closer to the back of the field? Well, he's been trying to climb his way back up through. He currently sits P25 in a second pack that you can see off the back of the 16 of Joey Doucette as they try and get organized to catch up to the lead pack. But seems like most of the drivers back here are back here with a reason in mind, and that is to avoid the big one or any possible incidents that happen in that lead pack. But with those aggressive moves up to the outside with the 29 and the 2, I'm not sure if this is a safe place to be either.
Well, even if you try to stay back and be patient and be passive, especially in these early stages here to Super Speedway race, Josh, they're still race car drivers, and they have these race trucks here and they want to race each other with them. So you still sometimes see some moves and some jockeying for positions, even if you're sticking way back in the pack and trying to avoid those wrecks. So it's kind of almost an oxymoron that staying back almost makes you safer, but really sometimes it doesn't. You might be back there with a driver that may not be as skilled as you, and they do something that you're not inspecting, and it causes an incident, much like being up at the front and just racing hard. And as we look back up towards the front of the pack, we see two trucks here now trying to form an outside line, but really losing momentum on the top side with lap traffic on the bottom.
Still side by side through the field. However, Jacob Klinkart falls back in that outside line. He scored P6, currently third in that outside line, as leading it now is Justin Lumpkin. Adam Newbert behind in the 4, side by side at the front of the field. Christopher Blanchard on the inside line. That 19 has been strong to lead and set the pace of this pack, but Lumpkin doesn't want it to stay there long. Another lap led by that outside line, but also another lap where they can't clear the inside. Still more trucks formed up on the inside line, but the outside line starting to get stronger as it now is about 9 trucks that are trying to make that outside line move. And Devin Painter, you saw him peeking out to the outside. He wants to go somewhere that is not involving the 19 of Blanchard. A big push from Adam Newbert will shove Justin Lumpkin out and into the race lead. Newbert comes down barely in front of the 19 as the 2 F-150s at the front clear the inside line.
And you saw such a huge run they got down there, Josh, on the backstretch, and it was able to have Newbert and Lumpkin there clear the 19 of Blanchard and able to take the lead. But it's so important to try to time those runs as well as you can, because you mentioned how side by side it is even when one line's trying to get an advantage on another. And that's just a fact of the super speedway racing, is no matter how formed up you are, no matter how well you're doing, as we see one truck getting loose there, they're kind of a bad push in the corner. You don't want to be doing that. But no matter how formed or tied up you get, you're still not going to be able to break away from these trucks very much, Josh.
That was Klinkart that ended up getting loose on that outside, and it was a little bit of a bad shove from the 20 as Blanchard now loses the lead and decides to fall out of the pack. So he will go all the way down, and ooh, that's tight there with the 3 wide. And Blanchard falls now all the way down to P21 currently on the track. And with Dittmer, Munda, Cinnamon, Morales, and more behind, as everybody will go by Derek Kilgore, who was in that lead pack. He was second on the outside line after the contact between the 20 of Jose Luis Rivera and the 5 of Jacob Klinkart. Everybody side by side now up at the front once again, but Justin Lumpkin on the inside with Adam Newbert in tow. Will it be another quick change of race lead as a big shove to the back bumper? Coming is Jacob Klinkart and Jose Luis Rivera on the outside. It's not a bad shove from the 5 to the 20 this time by as they go into turn 3.
And as always, you really want to try to do your pushing on the backstretch as much as you possibly can. We saw what happened to the end of stage 1 there with pushing in the tri-oval and then pushing in the corners. We also saw what almost happened there as well. And it looked like for a second there, Josh Kilgore in the 11 truck was trying to get a third line going. Nobody went with him, or possibly he was just trying to drop to the back a little bit too hairy for him right now.
Through turn 1, another lapped machine looks to be Hammond on the outside, He'll be slow and will go one lap down, first lap down for him, or actually he'll go 2 laps down, excuse me. He is 1 lap away from the next driver that he would be racing, which is Lucas White. But the 20 on the outside trying to clear the inside line. He might have had it by inches there back to turn 3, but not nearly enough as Klinkart. This is another race for Klinkart in where that 5 machine is just always at the front, but just cannot get it done. I mean, we saw this at Sonoma, possibly his best performance that I have ever seen in this series, and he has another one of these Sonoma races where he's up at the front of the field and just will not leave that top 5. Can he get it done really is the big question, but we've seen multitude of different Talladega races, both real and virtual, that all the drivers at the front right now are not the same drivers that are up at the front when we're coming to the white flag.
Not only that, but another driver that kind of fits that mold too is Adam Newbert in the Ford truck as well. Always up towards the front of the pack, running the top 5 and the top 10, but not able to get it done 100% quite yet. And so you watch these drivers, and not only these drivers, Josh, but you mentioned it, how much the pack gets shuffled up in the course of a night. Really, anybody can win here at Talladega or Daytona, these super speedway races, and that's part of the allure for a lot of these races, and why you see such a large field size tonight is everybody in this field, whether you're in first place or 21st place right now, feels like they have a chance to win this race possibly. And we saw it on the Tuesday night in the ARCA race that we were mentioning a few times, is there was 2 huge wrecks on the last lap on the backstretch and then turn 4, and somebody that was running possibly back in 20th place all of a sudden finds himself in 8th place. So really anything can happen here in super speedway racing.
Side by side, back for the race lead with 5 to go in the stage. It looked like somebody was trying to make a third line work, but not enough momentum yet, as Klinkart is gonna try it from up front, and that was immediately met with a little bit of regret for the 5 of Klinkart. He'll fall back to line. They'll reach up to a lapped machine that is Eric Zimmerman, that is well off the pace. Pack works their way by as a disconnect now in the outside line with the 43 of Blake Lothian with look to be the 81 of Taylor Peacock in tow, trying to catch up to a charging number 5 and a charging number 80 or charging number 20, excuse me, up at the front of this field as they're starting to catch. Will they go 3 wide? 4 to go in the stage. Do they look for it? No, they do not. Maybe thinking about it, but not that eager just yet for these stage points.
Well, again, approaching another driver that is going to be lapped here, makes the move to the inside down on the apron, but you got to think that that's factoring into a decision as we start to see 3 drivers now towards the back of the pack, possibly trying to form an outside line, but it looks like they're going to file back in. But lap traffic kind of making a factor here with some of these runs, Josh, is kind of the ideal time you would think to make them is when you see a lap car coming up right then, and you don't want to put yourself 3 wide in a situation and give the lap car that's much smaller than this pack nowhere to go, because that's just going to stack you up as well.
3 to go in stage 2. Remember that stage caution at the end of lap number 35. Lumpkin and Newbert versus what is Rivera and Klinkart on that outside line. Doucette in tow on the inside line. Painter still in tow, as well as the one of the new names in this series. That is the 53 of Fonda, as the outside line will clear the inside once again into 3, but does not go for the move. Staying up at the top of the racetrack is Jose Luis Rivera, as well as the 5 of Jacob Klinkart. 3 wide, a little bit further back, as here comes the cavalry, as Blanchard ducks it into the pit lane at the end of the stage. 2 to go in stage 2, and that third line trying to form cannot get anything as they go back to turn 1.
And possibly seeing some drivers change the track position play here, Josh, knowing the caution's going to come out at lap 35, diving the pit road now, trying to short pit the rest of the field possibly. But up here at the front of the pack, we see some intense racing. We saw it towards the back last time by a third line trying to get formed, but these drivers still content right now running 2 by 2.
down the Alabama gang super stretch. White flag in the stage, this time by still that third line, only about 2 to 3 trucks strong right now. Make it about still 2. I thought one more was hopping up, but they stay in the middle line. Make it 4 trucks, make it 5 trucks. Do they have enough momentum? And quite frankly, do they have enough time to try and make their way up to the top 10? Edge of the top 10 sits Michael McKinnon. Make it Stephen Thomas, as everybody trying to jump up to a third line, back to turn number 1, but it's still 2 lines strong at the front.
And we mentioned how deliberate you have to be with your moves here at Talladega, Josh. I think that third line up there that we're seeing form towards the back of that pack chose a little bit too late, and you see him again get kind of absorbed by that second line with nowhere to go right now. They're very hemmed up.
They waited a little bit too long. Is it still 2 by 2 at the front? But Jose Luis Rivera is clear of Lumpkin. Does he go for the block? No, he does not. Now he does in 3. He'll leave Clint Card out to dry. Lothian in top of 3 wide as Taylor Peacock goes to the middle. Still 3 by 3 further back, but at the front, single file for the top 2. Is Lumpkin going for it? Yes, he is. He'll go to the outside. Newbert tries to go with him. The 4 all kinds of sideways. Heading into the tri-oval. Who's going to get the stage win? 2 by 2, 3 wide further back, and the stage win goes to Justin Lumpkin. What a stage finish for stage 2.
That was incredible, Josh. We almost saw that get very hairy again. We saw, well, I think it was Neubert there step out of line, or Newbert there step out of line there right at the end of the stage, and really cut off Klinkart there in the 5. Almost had another repeat of last stage where we had a few trucks getting into each other there, but able to get across the line clean. But what a finish, as you mentioned.
They were fighting all sorts of crazy further back in that pack, fighting for as many positions as they could have gotten. And Stephen Thomas ends up with the 10th position, the last points paying spot in the stage. James Morris, CJ Fonda, Devin Painter, Taylor Peacock, and then the top 5, Doucette, Klinkart, Newbert, Rivera, and Lumpkin, grabbing those stage points. And an unbelievable finish to that stage. Everybody aggressive at the front. How is stage 3 and the race going to end, as we will go over halfway done with this race at the end of this stage? Still waiting on the stage pit stops to come in, expecting more drivers to grab 4 fresh Goodyears, expecting more drivers to fill up on fuel. 20 to 24 laps on that fuel window. They will need to make at least 1 more pit stop, and that'll come during